Good day, Reverend.
Good day.
Where are the rest of us?
Well, perhaps they've been delayed coming around the quay or over the bridge, like you.
The boats were in.
Is this what I think it is?
It is.
Geological Survey of the Yorkshire coast by the Reverend George Young.
Congratulations, George.
One more reason why we don't need a museum.
No, the reason why we do. The new sciences are proving popular.
You'll be telling us there's women involved in them next.
There are. Mary Anning, for one, is quite an expert on dinosaur bones.
Reverend, we all need our amusements. You like collecting fossils? I like shooting. But I don't need a museum for that.
Well, similar museums have been set up all around the country.
Well, what's happened south of Yorkshire is of no interest to me.
Well, it's happening more close to home. There are collections in Hull and Leeds, and a new philosophical society has been formed in York.
York's always had ideas above its station.
Strata Smith is also in Yorkshire.
What sort of a man calls himself Strata?
The father of English geology. He's moved over to the coast, to Scarborough,
Scarborough, you say?
with his fossil collection.
Well, that won't do.
What are we calling ourselves again?
The Whitby Literary and Philosophical Society.
And our purpose?
To promote the interests of science, maintain our collections of fossils, antiquities, natural history specimens in a department of miscellaneous curiosities for local people, to stop them going to see other collections in York or Leeds or London.
Or Scarborough?
Especially Scarborough. Welcome, gentlemen.
To the first meeting of the Whitby Literary and Philosophical Society, the Reverend Young.
In the 1820s, when the museum was founded, there was this huge kind of fever, really, for fossil collecting and for natural history generally. A lot of the gentlemen who put it together would have had private collections of their own of fossils and natural history and so on. They decided that they were going to make these publicly available.
They also bought things. The first big purchase we know of is the crocodile, which they bought for £7.
Discovered in 1824 in Whitby, so only just after the society was formed. George Young, who was involved in buying it, wrote a wonderful description of it, which he sent to a journal, so there's that lovely sharing of knowledge, where he said that he was amazed to see that instead of flippers, it actually has feet. And of course it all led on then to things like theories of evolution, Darwin's Origin of Species and so on. So people understood that. They understood that this was a very important subject, and Whitby was at the heart of that.
The first museum was only really a single room above a shop, and so obviously space very quickly filled up. The opportunity came to move to a purpose-built place along the pier side. It was 2 floors up, so everything had to go up the stairs, no lifts in those days, and the space just filled up and filled up as they acquired more and more stuff. Even the loo had boxes in, apparently, and they started looking elsewhere. When this land here was given to the town and the art gallery was built, it was suggested we built onto the back of it. There's a sale we had in 1930 as they were raising money for this present building, and we had an Egyptian mummy that went for £15. We had a Peruvian mummy. We had pieces from Greenland and China. In some ways, they were right to look to sell them because they were outside our core interest, which has always been Whitby, the town, the district.
I think it's always on your mind that this society has been going for 200 years, and it's up to us as trustees to put it in a position to keep continuing. It is the Communities Museum. We hold all this collection in trust for the people of Whitby, and that is the purpose of the Society.
The amount of objects we've got in the museum on last count would be about 97,000 objects. With any item that we've got, it could be, say, a spoon, a cup, a plate. It's just an inert object. It means absolutely nothing. But if you have spoken to the donor and have got as much information, the family information, maybe a photograph of the person, you get some marvellous stories, and that's what we've got to capture.
Well, put those away. I've just had a thought that you might be interested in this. It's one of the most precious pictures we have. It's a Richard Wetherill, and it was in the house of a Mrs. Miller who lived on Spring Hill. At the time that this was damaged, it was the bombardment of Whitby on the 16th of December 1914. The shell went straight through the house, killed Mrs. Miller very sadly, and then came through the picture this way and out. And if you can see the damage to the side and the front. And we're never going to do anything with it. We're never going to restore it. We're never going to clean it, because this is a piece of Whitby's history.
This dress was made for Mrs. Gardner. Her father died within a month of the wedding, and she was going off to India with her new husband, and because of that she didn't want to wear white. So this is a very special dress, beautifully covered in beads and buttons all down the front. It's got a lovely train at the back, a big bustle, and it's one of our special pieces, and all the locals come to see it quite regularly.
Well, the SS Larpool was a Whitby-owned tramp steamer, which during the Second World War was unfortunately torpedoed and sunk in the North Atlantic near Newfoundland. My great-granddad was on board when the ship was torpedoed, and even though the crew got to the lifeboats, some of the lifeboats disappeared into the North Atlantic, never to be seen again, and he was on one of them. And I sometimes wonder, what was he doing on board a ship at 65 years old in a war? That just sums up to me the Whitby story of ships. The merchant mariners just kept going.
We do get people that say that they are unhappy about some of the things that we've got. People don't like whaling, but at the time they needed the oil, they needed the blubber, where now we can synthetically make it. You have to learn from history, you just can't typically it all out. And I think if you learn from it and it maybe upsets you slightly, you're not going to repeat it.
Some people ask why we've got artefacts from all over the world when we're Whitby Museum, and it reflects the voyages that set out from here, the places that people went to. The room that we're in, Cook travelled south, Scoresby travelled north, so Whitby seafarers went all over the world, and as far as we know, all these objects were collected by peaceful means of exchanging one thing for another. We can't know that for definite, but it's important that we interpret these items respectfully. We have a totem pole here, which somebody inquired about recently. We know that the totem pole was donated to the town from the area of Nootka Sound near Vancouver Island. Because of this inquiry, we made contact with a museum local to that area to ensure that the interpretation we have for it is correct.
The majority of the time for us it's just changing the way that we interpret it, and also working with the people from where it's come from as well. They don't always want things back, they just basically want to know where is everything. But if they do want things back, there's not a lot we can do about it. But I think each piece has got to be taken on its own merit. But it is a minefield, an absolute minefield, I think.
It's always a challenge to think about the future and how we're going to be sustainable. Although we have some fantastic artefacts from the past, we also have to keep collecting for the future. For example, one of our most exciting recent acquisitions is the Zeppelin 3, which is a dark matter detector that was operating in the science lab at the bottom of Bowlby Mine.
Don't ask me how it works because that's beyond me. And when we've said about Whitby seafarers going to all parts of the world, it's fantastic that now there's an artefact within the museum that was designed to find something in outer space.
I thought you'd like to have a look at one of our recent acquisitions that we've purchased through auction. It's actually an album of 95 George Wetherell's paintings and sketches.
I've died and gone to heaven. Because I was frightened that it would be bought and then broken up by a dealer.
Would it have been broken up?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, really?
Definitely,
Yes.
definitely.
Yes,
As individual?
Yeah, even the auction house said that.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I think there's always going to be the financial risk. There's always going to be the disaster risk. I mean, if God forbid, we ever had a fire in here, everything's old wood, it would just fly through. We have to be constantly vigilant for pests.
Natural history curator was wanting to bring some bird specimens in. Everything has to go through quarantine, which is basically, it sits in a freezer for 2 weeks. The curator had said that he'd done the quarantine at home, so he put them on display, and a few weeks later there was a little boy actually looking in one of the cases, and he'd said, "I've seen a moth on one of your specimens." So we shot out and had a look, and you could see where these new specimens had been brought in, round about them there was all these little moths that were slowly but surely eating any specimen that they could get the little fangs on. So we literally had to strip the whole case down, but we lost one of the kingfishers. It literally stripped it bare. So I think now we've got the only bald-headed kingfisher ever. And we use it as an example. If you don't do quarantine, this is what's going to happen to some of the specimens.
It's amazing how much you learn as well over the 10 years I've been working in here. I've been on more courses than I ever did when I was teaching, and I've learned an awful lot about conservation, about house storage, about acid-free boxes, about conserving items, how to handle things.
So to show you some of the systems that we have within our archive room, which is where we keep articles that need more sensitive care and attention. This section of the archive here, you'll see that we've got all of our older books, again following the Dewey system, which is standard for a library, but these are the ones that have more delicate spines, they need more care and attention. The object of this area is that it's humidity controlled, it's temperature controlled. We've got dehumidifiers that take the moisture out of the air. So within this, we've got, if you like books, you can just eat heart out, really. Just keep reading and reading.
Engine's the big thing. For me, it's sails.
Being older, he likes the sailing ships, and I like the more modern ships with engines.
They're nice and quiet.
Yeah.
Got a very small team of paid staff, but they're supported massively by this band of volunteers who volunteer in all aspects of the museum, so from curators to front of house, to the library, and of course our trustee board are all volunteers as well.
I'm an architectural historian by trade, or I was, but I'm also a painter, so I was told that as I was a painter, I was the art curator.
I used to teach food and textiles. When I retired, I came up to help up here and just loved the atmosphere and the fact there was so many clothes and fabrics around, and eventually became curator here. All it means is I just do all the work and set all the exhibitions out and try and come in every week and go through all the boxes and sew labels into everything.
We've got to look at new ways of reaching our audience. Recently we've had a new website and we're very active on social media, and we realise we've got to move forward, and we do move forward. And in the newer part of the building we've got a couple of touch screens and things like that, but we never want to lose the feel of the museum as it is, and that's what people really do love about Whitby Museum.
I think a lot of the museums have maybe gone too push-button trendy. I don't think we will ever go down that line.
I've always thought it's a bit like rummaging through somebody's attic. You know, there's just tons of stuff in here. And the stuff doesn't really need a lot of explanation. It's almost like you can make up your own stories. So we really love that about our museum, and we're going to keep it that way.
For school visits, for families, I just think there's something for everybody. And we always say, if you don't like the look of one case, turn around, because there's something in another that's totally different.
And I think I've probably handled everything that's out there, sometimes with gloves, sometimes not with gloves, but, you know, it's just been an absolute privilege to do it. Yeah, gonna get upset now.
Well, all in all, that went rather well, I think.
Much better than one could have hoped. Thank you both for your help.
Just doing our bit for our community.
The Whitby Literary and Philosophical Society.
Grand name for a grand purpose.
How long should we register the name for? 50 years? 100 years?
Reverend, where's your ambition?
How do you mean?
How old are you, blessed fossils?
Some people date them back to the flood, while others say they may be even older than that. Much more has been learnt about them all the time.
Well, why would we put a date on the museum? After all, it appears to me it might be here for quite some time.
We're not actually trying to take over the museum.
Have we not?
Yet.
Given that the progress that's been made from 1823 to 2023 is amazing, given our climate crisis at the moment, we may very well be in a space station going round in space, and we'll be visited by people in their own personal spaceships. Who knows? Does that sound terrible?
We tell the story of the mummy in the exhibition that was sold to a neighbouring museum. Sorry. It was bound to happen, wasn't it?
So if you had your way, would this area expand right now?
If I had my way, we'd move all the shipping into the main museum and move the main museum into here, but Dee won't let me.
There's always been a standing joke. Which case would I like to be put in? Because I've been here that long. I'm probably older than some of the things that are out there now. I tried to think what they'd put on the label.